We will start the press conference by Minister Motegi. The floor is yours. I have one report. From tomorrow, from the 5th of August, and the plan is until the 7th of August, I will visit the UK. Since the global spread of the novel coronavirus, this is the first overseas visit by a Japanese cabinet minister. In the UK, I plan to talk with International Trade Secretary Ms. Truss on the early conclusion of a new Japan-British economic partnership, which hopefully will be a final stage consultation. In order to continue smooth business between Japan and the UK, rapid creation of a new bilateral trade and investment framework to substitute the Japan-EU EPA is indispensably important. The Brexit transition period expires by the end of this year, and therefore I wish to engage in an intensive final stage consultations. My counterpart is Mr. Raab, Foreign Secretary. We will discuss extensive bilateral cooperation, including free and open Indo-Pacific security and defense cooperations, or measures against the novel coronavirus and regional affairs, amongst others. Thank you.
Questions, please. If you have a question, when you're called upon, please proceed to the standing microphone and state your affiliation and name before you ask your question. So please raise your questions. Takao-san from Kyodo News, please. Takao from Kyodo News. After return from the UK, what measures do you take to quarantine? From prevention of infection standpoint, the UK has asked for 14-day voluntary quarantine. The minister and the accompanying persons, in what way will you cope with this? Could you tell us what have you considered so far and the present status, please? Before going to the UK, from the perspective of being thorough about preventing infection, on official visits overseas by government dignitaries, within the government, there has been coordination with regard to measures of countering infection. Firstly, that includes use of charter planes and private planes so that only the minimum required persons travel. And on the local scene, to avoid as much as possible coming into contact with the general public, to be thorough in prevention of infection of COVID-19. And we will be coming back using the private plane. So upon return to Japan, implementation of PCR tests, and furthermore, upon return to the country for 2 weeks, non-use of public transportation, and being vigilant in our behavior, monitoring health, and considering infection risk. With this as a premise, we will be conducting the necessary diplomacy and activities and diplomacy. These measures are such that the major countries in the West have made this a global standard. That is our awareness. And on the occasion of my visit to the UK, I will be implementing what I have explained for the immediate future. With regard to government dignitaries' visits overseas, on official visits, we are contemplating taking similar measures. The quarantine and health monitoring will be done properly. With regard to the scope of people who will be exempted from this, we will do a thorough job of preventing infection, and these are people who will be moving with me and on travels and on the local scene. And these are the people that will fall within the scope above the Director General, Secretary, official secretaries, and security personnel, and so forth. Thank you.
Oyagi-san, Yomiuri Shimbun newspaper. Oyabu Yomiuri Shimbun newspaper. Related to the negotiation between the UK. Earlier, you mentioned that you wish to engage in final consultations with Ms. Truss, the Secretary. I understand there are working level officials, but what are the remaining topics and how will you deal with the talks? So far, at the official level, between Secretary Truss, UK-Japan business economic partnership negotiation has started and 2 months have passed. Most likely, it would be slightly more than 20 chapters or so agreement on quite a lot of topics. At the official levels of our two countries, there has been almost a near conclusion talks. Of course, there are remaining topics, but at the ministerial level, those are the issues where we want to talk about so that we can finally reach a conclusion. That, after all, is what an EPA negotiation is, and therefore there are areas remaining. What approach can be taken? I do have my own thoughts. However, this is exactly a negotiation which I cannot tell you.
Next question, please. Radio France, Nishimura-san, please. Nishimura from Radio France. With regard to entry into Japan by foreign nationals, I have the following question. A domestic international school in Japan, several of the teachers have been granted permission to enter. That is what I found out through news coverage. It's a new entry into the country from Europe. With regard to border control measures, such exceptions with regard to business operations, are there such exceptions? And what are the standards from those with regard to people that have come from Europe? These schools are schools of primary school and junior high school. And from the standpoint of securing rights of children to obtain education, an exception to refusal of entry permission. These are exceptional circumstances which we have seen. In cases of human resources where alternative human resources are not available in Japan, we allow for entry from such a standpoint. Foreign schools and their families, we have coordinated with the relevant ministries so that in addition to those with status of residence, a new entry will be permitted. Next question, please.
The next question, please, from Nikkei Shimbun newspaper. Kato, Nikkei Shimbun, about your visit to the UK. After the spread of the infection, this is the first ministerial overseas travel. So your visit to the UK, do you think this would be a trigger for the resumption of face-to-face diplomacy after your return? According to some report, you're going to visit Southeast Asia. What is your plan? First of all, if you look at what the ministers are doing between the leaders or between the foreign ministers, their exchanges or a variety of meetings, they are just about to be resumed. On the whole, to prevent the spread of infection and at the same time thorough measures must be taken, the position of Japan is there are numerous diplomatic challenges. There are foreign affairs matters, as I mentioned at the outset, the economic partnership between UK and Japan, the conclusion of an agreement. There is a deadline. Without this agreement between UK and Japan, there will be a significant impact onto bilateral trade. And this is a matter of a national interest. Exactly. This is an extremely difficult talk, so I think telephone talk is impossible. At least my capability cannot deal with telephone negotiation. To have a direct meeting and to negotiate face-to-face, and it is going to take long hours. It is going to be a significantly long negotiation. And by doing so, we are going to seek some conclusion or agreement. That is my feeling. So this is not the only issue. For example, person-to-person exchanges resumption, the concrete scheme for person-to-person cross-border movements, starting with countries where the infection is becoming under control. First, with 4 countries, we have started to look at the 4 countries, Thailand and Vietnam. The resident track has been initiated. On top of that, in East Asia or in Southeast Asia, there are 12 countries and regions in these regions where talks will be implemented going forward. So these talks will have to be accelerated, but by doing so, ministerial consultations will become necessary. On top of that, more recently, East Asia or the East China Sea and South China Sea situations, the environment surrounding Japan and Asia, environment and surrounding situations have changed. So how to deal with these changing surrounding environments with the states of Southeast Asia? There must be lots of exchanges of opinions and consultations. These will be increasingly important. Of course, in addition to that, apart from myself, other ministers of the government or at the leaders level of diplomacy, it is just about to restart. So necessary meetings, necessary negotiations will have to take place. First of all, as the first phase, I myself will visit the UK, and upon my visit, there will be lots of measures to prevent the spread of infection, even measures after the return.
Other question, please. TBS, please. Morikawa from TBS. In Mozambique, related to the ODA project, the ODA project ProSAVANA in Mozambique, for what reason have you decided to terminate this? The ProSAVANA project is such that it targets northern part of Mozambique to improve productivity of small-scale agriculture. It's an agricultural development project, and there was a large progress made in terms of the project from the Mozambique government. They have said that the support to this project was such that it has been fully leveraged in Mozambique's agricultural policy, and they indicated that they wanted to terminate this project. In response to this, between Japan and Mozambique, we have confirmed the completion of this project. The objective was attained, and so that is why it has been completed.
Morikawa-san, your next question. Again, Morikawa, TBS. From fiscal 2011, for 10 years, 3.5 billion yen has been spent, which is a significant project, but the decision to discontinue at this moment, how would you summarize, or what lessons have been gained? I just mentioned so. There are sufficient achievements. This is not a cancellation. It is a completion. It is not a discontinuation. There has been sufficient achievement, so we just ended.
Other questions, please? Yamamoto-san from NHK. I would like to raise 2 questions. First, on Hong Kong. Last week, Hong Kong has announced its deferment of a legislative council election by 1 year. And the reason was prevention of infection, and there is no other reason, they say. But with regard to this response, what is your reaction? The election itself and the general condition is what I'd like to comment on as well. The Legislative Council election, partial candidates have had their qualifications revoked to stand in the elections. And the deferral of the elections and the impact of this to the one country, two systems, the recent Legislative Council situation is such that we have grave concerns. Hong Kong, to our country, is a place that has close economic relations, and it has close human exchanges as an important partner, extremely important partner. Under the one country, two systems, free and open framework to be maintained, and for Hong Kong to be democratically, stably developing is of importance to Japan. That's a consistent stand. and free and fair elections without delay to be implemented would be the important foundation for this. So our country would like to liaise closely with relevant countries, and with regard to the situation regarding Legislative Council in Hong Kong, we'd like to keep a close eye.
My next question, Yamamoto, NHK. This is about the Senkaku Islands. The Chinese fishes are navigating near the island, according to some report from the Chinese government to the Japanese government. There has been a prior notification as if there is going to be a large number of boats and fleet arriving. So there has been communication that Japan has no authority. But can you confirm the facts? There is no fact that such a report has arrived, no. But the government position is, considering the current security environment, in order to be able to appropriately deal with a variety of situations, necessary postures are being established. Going forward, related movements will be carefully monitored. There will be close collaboration between relevant authorities and departments, and we will do whatever we can depending on the circumstance.
Takao-san, please. Kyodo News, Takao. On the treaty to ban nuclear weapons, from those who have experienced the atomic bomb, government is asking to sign this. There are only 10 countries remaining who have not signed. In view of this situation, with regard to the treaty on prohibition of nuclear weapons, what is the government stance? And how do you intend to bridge between nuclear states and non-nuclear states? On individual treaty issues and Japan's stance, you need to separate the two. As the only country that has experienced the atomic bomb, the inhumane nature of nuclear weapons is what we know. And toward a nuclear-free world, we should lead the international approaches to this. And we believe it behooves us to do so. From the 10th of this month it'll be 75 years since the atomic bomb, and there is no wavering in our policy, and it's also the policy of the other countries, and we need to confirm that. And amidst such circumstances, the TPNW aims at eradication of nuclear weapons, and we share that goal. However, as I have repeatedly said, this treaty is such that under the present state of this treaty, it cannot be supported by nuclear states or those non-nuclear states that face the threat of, that are exposed to the threat of nuclear weapons. The security situation surrounding Japan is becoming increasingly severe. Maintaining deterrence and strengthening deterrence, inclusive of this, we have to appropriately respond to the threat of the realistic security issues steadfastly and realistically. We need to proceed with nuclear disarmament, and we need to seek that path, and I think that is necessary. And amidst these circumstances, the countries are not walking in lockstep. What is the one thing that can be done in common? A common platform is something that we need to try to build, and I believe that's extremely important, and that is what is on my mind. Last year at the G20, in Nagoya, the foreign ministers meeting, NTDI foreign ministers conference was held, and we hosted that. So such follow-ups is something that we want to do properly going forward.
Kim-san, Dong-a Ilbo. Kim of Dong-a Ilbo of Tokyo correspondent, Japan-South Korea relationship. As of today, regarding the foreign workers from the peninsula, Nippon Steel, towards the possible seizure of the assets, that there will be an immediate appeal. That is what they have said. What is your position? Can you repeat your question, please? As of today, regarding the former civilian workers from the peninsula, Nippon Steel, regarding the seizure of their asset to such procedures, that there will be immediate appeal. That is what they have announced. What is your observation going forward between South Korea, the talks, including foreign ministerial talks? Do you plan such talks? What I will like to emphasize about the former civilian workers from the Korean Peninsula, the Supreme Court decision in South Korea and the related judicial procedures, these are clear a breach of international laws. On top of that, asset seizure does not equally mean immediate realization, but the order of seizure as of the early morning at 0 o'clock of the 4th, it has gone into effect by public notification service. If they are going to be realized, there will be a dire situation which has to be avoided, including the earlier Japan-South Korea foreign ministerial talks. This has been strongly mentioned to South Korea from our side repeatedly. Going forward, we will strongly request South Korea for early resolution. In order to protect legitimate economic activities of Japanese enterprises, which is extremely important from the government perspective, we will continue to collaborate closely with relevant companies. And what scenario is possible, including that scenario, all options will be considered and we will take firm position.
Further questions? If not, I will conclude the press conference for today. Thank you very much.